Sangeeta, good to welcome you on NDTV Profit. As the negotiations are going and some of the key highlights of smoothening of those negotiation talks on certain aspects which are critical to India like agriculture, livestock, marine, all these are looks like taken care of. In your view, having the vantage point of being in those negotiations, how do you view this and how critical is it for India at the current moment?
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on your show. On agriculture, well, the public uh, uh, information in the public domain is that agriculture has been kept out of the negotiations. And for India, in one sense, it's a good thing because then we have so many sensitivities here, dairy, this, that, and all our farmers are always rightly so, not willing to open up to these rich countries. And now in EU also the same thing seems to have happened. Their farmers are up in arms against the deal with Mercosur, and therefore it has been kept out. So to that extent, I think half the sensitive issues go out when agriculture goes out. But on the other hand, EU has the highest tariffs in agriculture, sometimes even high as 300%, 400%. Those are ad valorem tariffs. Therefore, they are very, very high. And that opportunity which we had to access the market has gone. So it has both sides to the coin. But for the present, I think it's a good thing. Then at least we could go and complete it by this time. If we had kept agriculture, it would have been quite difficult. EU might not have been able to sign, or even if had signed, it would not have been able to ratify. So I think it's a good thing that agriculture is out for the present.
Yes, and that being a sensitive sector, that being out actually showcases the relationship and also the alliance that EU and India is building. Also economic and political, that is very critical at this point. But Gaura, how critical is the EU? You said that after US, EU is the most important region of trade for us. But looking at the larger picture, if we have to see a continuous overhang of US tariff war, because there are many factors at play, at this particular time, with the several FTAs that India has signed, how much of the trade are we able to really offset with US not being a dominant player at the current moment?
It's at the onset, it is difficult to replace US. In certain items, US is the majority market. For example, if you see pharmaceuticals, majority of our exports, pharmaceutical exports go to the US. And it's very difficult to substitute away from that. But in the fact that we are maybe stuck with the 50% bilateral tariffs for the next few months till the time that they are able to reach an agreement, this is the only way out where we try to expand our engagement with other countries and to create a level playing field. Yes, if let's say we are stuck with a 50% bilateral tariff, it is negative from an FY27 current account perspective. As per our estimates, it could widen your current account deficit by around 0.3% of GDP. But there are other factors also that we need to take into account. For example, ever since India's tariffs went up to 50%, our exports to China have picked up surprisingly. From September onwards, there's a double-digit growth in our exports to China. So overall, if you look at our export performance in the second half of the year, when the 50% tariffs are there, the major reason for the weakness in India's exports have been because petroleum prices have fallen, so the value of petrol has gone down. But if you look at non-oil exports, that is still a positive growth, but yes, it is softer. So obviously, yes, if we get a trade deal with the US, it is a much better, much better circumstance. But in the interim, this is the only way out, that we diversify our markets, we focus on other markets, and more importantly, work on reducing concentration that is specifically in the services side. Software services, 50% plus of it goes to the US. So we need to, from a long-term perspective, make our exports, both merchandise and services, more diversified. So whenever there is a regime change in any country, the trade aspect does not get affected. So all these FTAs, maybe they may not help us to counter the negative impact of the US tariffs in the short term. But over a medium term, I think this is the only way to go forward to make sure that we get access to newer markets.
That's right. Newer markets is what the government has been tirelessly working on, and we have got some wins. Sangeeta Godbole, when we talk about these EU trade deal and the negotiations that are going on, smooth as it seems at the current moment, as a negotiator yourself, what do you think it means for our economic as well as political diplomacy?
Well, I used to be a negotiator. I'm no longer a negotiator. I used to be a negotiator. I was heading the EU desk as director, and the negotiations were really, we had cooked it up and it was ready to sign, and then it didn't happen sometime in 2013. So I think, but now it is all ready, and I think it's really going to be signed. No, so nothing is smooth, okay? Let me tell you. Right now, the negotiators must be really, at their wits' end. But I'm presuming that things are mostly agreed, largely agreed, mostly agreed, everything is okay, but it's never like that. And till now you will have this legal scrubbing after this and legal vetting, so that also keeps on raising some issues from their side, from our side, and then they also need to be ironed out. And then finally it will be ready for signing from both sides. At the time of signing, if sometimes people in EU or people in India can start raising a big hoo-ha, and we don't know, but hopefully all will work smoothly. After it is signed, it is ratified. The Indian ratification process is much easier. It doesn't go to parliament. It is just with the approval of the cabinet that it is ratified, and it goes straight to the president of India. In the EU, the ratification procedure is really, really hard. And that is where, there could be some hiccups. But today is 26 Jan. Today is time for celebration and jubilation that what we started some 20 years ago is now completed. So all fingers crossed. And let us hope that it goes very, very smoothly and both sides get a very good deal and improve each other market access. And also, as you were saying earlier, that both economies benefit from each other, apart from just trade and market access.
That's right. The US trade war probably is pushing the other countries to also align with each other to bring benefit to each other. Let me now get in an important voice also. NDTV's Aditya Kaul had an interesting conversation with EU officials, including the ambassador of Norway, Germany, and Italy. Let's listen in.
Norway is part of the EFTA group. We have our own trade agreement with India, entered into force on 1st October. And that was a milestone in the relationship that we have with India. And if there is a deal also signed now between the EU countries and EFTA, it will equally be a milestone in India's relations with Europe.
First and foremost, we have to say that we are two independent bodies, the EU, India. We feel that there is a lot of common ground, so it's good to join hands. But I have to say that, tariff policy is exactly the contrary of what the EU is advising and advocating. And therefore, this meeting between EU and India, the FTA, that hopefully will come out of it, is a clear signal that there are still, important markets. EU is the most important single market in the world, with 450 million inhabitants, agree on free trade. I think free trade is the way forward, and it will be beneficial to all sides of these deals, the European as well as the Indian side, and therefore I think it's high time to do it, and it is a clear message that we send out to the world. Free trade is the way forward and not tariffs.
I am optimistic because it's the right time and there are the right grounds to do that, because there are objective convergences and it's a win-win. When you sign an agreement that is based on win-win conditions, and by putting aside the irritants, the red lines, remains substantive, these are the conditions, I think has a great future in enhancing not only our economic relationship, but also our political and strategic partnership, which means in every sector.
Right. So those were the commentary coming in. A big takeaway coming in from those global leaders is also that free trade agreement is the way to go and not protectionism. Gaura, my question to you also, in your estimate, the key sectors on your radar the costs that we will save, and the impact of the imminent EU trade?
So if you look at the export basket for India to EU, our major exports by far is petroleum. Petroleum followed by telecom instruments, and then you've got electrical machinery. Uh, in the case of our imports, our major imports from EU, one of the major is, let's say, equipment, aviation, etc. So for us, I think the major win would be better access for our electronic exports to the US. Petroleum, definitely, because we are exporting refined petrol, that will continue, but I would say access to their market for our electronic products, that would be quite a win. But I would also say, apart from that, apart from the trade agreement, this is a quite a broader agreement. It's likely to even cover, let's say, defense ties. Also, maybe there could be some easing or promotion of investments. For example, getting more sources of FDI from, let's say, EU, which is a current account surplus. They are a net saving economy, so they invest externally, will also go a long way. But I think the major win would be diversification and reducing dependence on any country. For now, the issue is, let's say, with the trade negotiation with the US, in a, somewhere down the line, it could be issue with another country also. So it's important that we reduce the dependence on any one country when it comes to our export markets. I would also be key to look at what is happening on the services side. For example, software services,
Yes.
50% goes to the US. Again, EU is very well positioned to take a greater role in terms of our software services.
Yes. And the carbon credit aspect will be also watched out for, because for our companies, manufacturing companies, it can add a lot of cost on the carbon credit and emission front as well. Sangeeta Godbole, final word in the semantics of the wordings and the way, the body language, and also the kind of picture that has been presented with EU really standing, or EU top leaders standing with Narendra Modi. All those semantics all put together, as a former negotiator yourself, what are the key things to watch out for? And also in the language, what should be kept in mind in this particular case?
Well, that's the big thing, language is
Yes.
everything in a
Yes.
deal, and one word counts. Like, so we used to spend days on one word, because these things really, really count. And don't be fooled by what seems like nice pictures and nice language and nice press releases or whatever it is called. There is a lot going on behind this, and this is a very strategic deal, in the sense that these deals are forever. So once you sign it, things are not really going to change. So you have to really look in the future. You mentioned CBAM, right? You look in the future, you look what is going to happen, you look where is our ambition, what is the ambition of our companies, and then you sign the deal. That is the way it is done. So although it looks all very pretty and polished, it is rarely so. But yes, that has been my experience.
That's right. And to also have a smooth negotiation, a lot of chips have been dropped by both the parties as well. And what's going to be the silver bullet, that also needs to be seen. So many, many semantics and political diplomacy behind this economic deal. Thank you so much, Sangeeta, as well as Gaurav, for joining in.